Every time you take a sip of alcohol, a chemical weapon enters your bloodstream. Your body immediately converts it into a toxic byproduct called acetaldehyde. The World Health Organization classifies acetaldehyde as a Group 1 carcinogen. It sits in the exact same category as tobacco smoke and asbestos. Over 2 billion people on this planet consume this substance on a regular basis, many of them every single day. Alcohol wages a slow, methodical war on nearly every organ you have. Your liver swells with fat it cannot process, and your brain physically shrinks, losing measurable volume year after year. At the microscopic level, your gut lining tears open, leaking bacteria into the bloodstream. Even your sleep architecture collapses from the inside. The moment you stop drinking, your body launches an aggressive repair campaign. Scientists can measure actual structural changes in your brain within just 2 weeks of sobriety. Part of that repair involves the Glymphatic system, a waste removal protocol deep inside your skull. When alcohol leaves your blood, this system activates to flush your brain tissue, clearing the neurological fog associated with chronic drinking. This systemic recovery is one of the most powerful processes in human biology. But understanding how the body repairs itself requires a look at the chemical mechanics of the initial damage. Ethanol is a toxin. Our ancestors only developed the enzymes to process it by eating fermented fruit on the forest floor 10 million years ago. Modern drinking levels overwhelm a system designed for occasional, tiny exposures. When ethanol hits your stomach, your body begins emergency processing. An enzyme called ADH breaks the ethanol down into acetaldehyde, that same carcinogen found in tobacco smoke. This two-step detox system relies on a second enzyme, ALDH, to convert toxic acetaldehyde into safer acetate. But regular drinking creates a massive biological bottleneck here. Acetaldehyde lingers in tissues, damaging your DNA strands and triggering chronic inflammation across multiple organs. This forced triage makes the liver prioritize alcohol metabolism above everything else. It stops its normal duties, such as processing the fat from your food. Roughly 90% of heavy drinkers develop a liver clogged with this unprocessed fat. The liver fails because it intentionally sacrifices its primary biological functions to protect the body from a lethal carcinogen. While the liver struggles, alcohol attacks the brain by supercharging GABA, the primary neurotransmitter responsible for calming neural signals. To maintain balance, your brain fights this artificial calm by shutting down its own natural GABA production. It then cranks up glutamate, its primary excitatory signal, to push through the alcohol-induced suppression. After months of drinking, the brain structurally adapts to function in this permanently overstimulated high glutamate state just to break even. Beyond the brain and liver, alcohol thins the gut's mucosal barrier, allowing bacteria to leak into the bloodstream. It also suppresses the hormone vasopressin, forcing the kidneys to overflush water, dehydrating your tissues and destroying restorative REM sleep cycles. The sensation of social relaxation is the chemical dismantling of the brain's natural ability to find peace. A casual social habit is, in biological terms, chronic exposure to a classified carcinogen that causes brain shrinkage and demolished sleep. Suddenly removing alcohol leaves the brain with zero artificial calm, while it is still producing massive amounts of excitatory glutamate. The intense anxiety and insomnia of early sobriety are the mechanical effects of this neurochemical imbalance. The first 72 hours are a biological war for the body to reclaim its natural homeostasis. During this phase, the liver clears its fat, REM sleep returns, and the glymphatic system flushes the brain tissue. Quitting alcohol activates a built-in survival and repair protocol that allows the body to reclaim its natural chemistry. The biological clock starts ticking the moment your last drink is fully metabolized. Depending on how much was consumed, that typically happens somewhere between 4 and 12 hours after the final sip. Within those first 6 hours, your blood alcohol level drops to 0. Your liver has been running a non-stop emergency detox operation to process the ethanol, but now it finally gets to shift gears. It immediately begins catching up on the work it had to neglect. The liver targets stored triglycerides, fats that have been piling up inside its cells. It starts breaking them down, tackling a metabolic backlog that has been sitting in the warehouse for months or even years. This metabolic pivot won't be finished in a day, but the process starts almost immediately. With the liver no longer consumed by an alcohol emergency, the body begins reallocating its biological resources toward the cellular repairs that follow. Zooming in closer, we can look at the individual liver cells, called hepatocytes. Inside each one are tiny energy factories, known as mitochondria. When alcohol is in your system, these factories are effectively hijacked. This microscopic diagram shows a mitochondrion acting like a furnace. To process ethanol, it is forced to relentlessly burn a critical molecule called NAD+. NAD+ drives hundreds of metabolic reactions in your body, and alcohol drains it completely. But within the first 24 hours of sobriety, that drain stops. Without ethanol present, the NAD+ levels finally begin to recover, accumulating inside the cells once again. This recovery directly impacts your cell's ability to produce adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is the universal energy currency for every living cell in your body. More NAD+ means your cells can synthesize ATP much more efficiently. Restoring that ATP supply provides the raw biological power your body demands. The lights are coming back on, giving your system energy required to power immune functions and clear out cellular damage. While the liver begins its comeback, the brain enters a very different phase. This initial healing period triggers an intense surge of physical anxiety. This structural scale shows the underlying neurochemical imbalance driving that anxiety. During active drinking, the brain operates in a state of chronic overstimulation to counteract alcohol's artificial calming effects. Now the alcohol is gone, but the overstimulation remains. We see elevated glutamate levels, the crimson neurotransmitters, dominating the suppressed GABA production. The nervous system is running hot, without any breaks. Between 12 and 48 hours after the last drink, you might experience an elevated heart rate, slight tremors, and insomnia. As the crimson levels lower and the amber rises, it is a mechanical sign of your brain slowly recalibrating its biological thermostat. For the vast majority of people, this neurochemical friction, this deep internal vibration of unease, peaks right around the 48-hour mark before it begins to steadily fade. However, for individuals with a history of heavy, prolonged daily drinking, this withdrawal can be medically dangerous. Abruptly stopping can produce seizures, hallucinations, or a life-threatening condition called delirium tremens. Seeking medical supervision is a strict safety imperative. Navigating this temporary overcorrection is the price of resetting the brain's natural calming mechanisms. Further down in the body, a structural repair is taking place in the digestive tract. Regular alcohol consumption inflicts microscopic damage on the intestinal lining. This cross-section shows the intestinal wall. Notice the solid, interlocking protein structures connecting these block-like cells. These are called tight junctions. They act like microscopic mortar between bricks, keeping the barrier sealed so bacteria and toxins stay out of the bloodstream. Alcohol dissolves that mortar. It weakens the tight junctions, creating microscopic gaps that allow fragments of bacteria, called lipopolysaccharides, to slip straight into the blood where they do not belong. Your immune system detects these bacterial fragments and immediately sounds the alarm, releasing inflammatory molecules like TNF-alpha. This state of constant low-grade warfare is why regular drinkers often have puffy faces, achy joints, and a persistent feeling of physical heaviness. But between 48 and 72 hours of sobriety, the gut begins to rebuild. Fresh epithelial cells emerge to replace the damaged ones, reassembling those interlocking tight junction proteins to halt the bacterial leaks entirely. By structurally sealing the gut barrier, the biological threat is removed. Your immune system stands down, and the background inflammation that has been simmering for months or years begins to cool. By the second or third night without alcohol, attention shifts back to the brain as a restructuring of your sleep architecture begins. Alcohol chemically suppresses REM sleep, the critical dream stage. When you are drinking, your brain is prevented from executing its daily processes of emotional consolidation, memory storage, and metabolic waste clearance. Within 72 hours of the last drink, you enter a phase known as REM rebound. Your brain aggressively forces a return to these deep, restorative dream stages to make up for lost time. Restoring this REM cycle directly targets the mental fog, irritability, and emotional fragility that define active drinking. Your brain finally gets to process accumulated emotions and clear out metabolic waste. Regaining this natural sleep architecture is a primary catalyst in the recovery process. With high-quality sleep restored, you finally start to feel like yourself again. By the end of day 3, several biological milestones have been reached. The liver clears its fatty backlog, the gut has patched its wall, the immune system has stood down, and the brain is dreaming again. You have transitioned out of a state of chronic cellular emergency and arrived at a functional baseline of biological efficiency. These microscopic systemic repairs take just 72 hours. This internal restoration serves as the foundation for the visible physical changes that emerge over the next 4 weeks. By day 7 of quitting alcohol, a physical change occurs that catches almost everyone off guard. The puffiness around your eyes fades, your jawline starts to sharpen, the redness settling across your cheeks and the bridge of your nose begins to clear. To understand why this happens so fast, we have to look at a hormone called vasopressin. Under normal conditions, vasopressin acts as a chemical messenger, signaling your kidneys to retain an appropriate, healthy amount of water. Alcohol disrupts this process by blocking vasopressin. Without this hormone, kidneys mistakenly flush out far more water than they should with every drink. Responding to this chronic dehydration, your body kicks into survival mode. Cells hoard water, storing it directly in facial soft tissue. When you stop drinking, vasopressin returns to normal levels within a matter of days. Your kidneys start managing fluid balance properly again. Your cells stop hoarding, and all that trapped water naturally drains away. People often get asked if they've lost weight or changed their skincare routine during this first week. They've done neither. Their bodies simply stopped fighting a defensive biological battle against dehydration. By day 10, the recovery moves deep beneath the skin. Research shows liver fat decreases by up to 15% in just 2 weeks of abstinence, dissolving accumulated lipid deposits from the hepatic tissue. Your liver performs over 500 distinct functions, from filtering blood and producing bile to regulating cholesterol and storing essential vitamins. Every percentage point of fat reduction gives it more room to operate. Imagine clearing discarded instruments off a crowded surgical table. The more space you create, the more precisely the surgeon can work. This medical imaging visualization compares 2 brain cross-sections to show what happens by day 14. In scans tracked by JAMA Psychiatry, researchers observed a measurable increase in cortical thickness in individuals who stopped drinking. That newly reinforced outer layer of the brain is the cortex. It is the anatomical center for your decision-making, your impulse control, and your complex thought. The brain rebuilds its own architecture from the outside in. The catalyst for this reconstruction is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of it as fertilizer for your brain cells. Alcohol actively suppresses the production of BDNF. Removing alcohol unleashes it. As those levels climb within the first 2 weeks, the protein helps new neurons grow, strengthens the connections between existing neurons, and protects tissue from further damage. This physical thickening of the cortex and the surge in BDNF directly produce the experience people call mental clarity. The healing translates into sharper thoughts, creates easier conversations, and completely lifts the mental fog. Inside your large intestine right now, there are roughly 38 trillion living organisms. This microscopic ecosystem calibrates your immune responses, produces neurotransmitters that regulate your mood, and communicates directly with your mind through a neural pathway known as the gut-brain axis. Alcohol devastates this community. It aggressively kills off beneficial bacterial species, leaving behind empty cellular real estate where harmful strains flourish unchecked. But between weeks 2 and 4 of sobriety, the microbial balance begins to reverse. Highly beneficial species, specifically lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, start to multiply and repopulate the gut. This biological process diagram displays those returning beneficial bacteria synthesizing short-chain fatty acids. These acids act as a biological mortar, repairing microscopic tears in the intestinal lining and systematically reducing inflammation throughout the body. Have you tried quitting alcohol, even for a short stretch like a week or a month, and noticed physical changes you genuinely didn't expect? Let us know in the comments. The range of experiences people describe is deeply fascinating, and it might help someone else understand their own timeline. Because of that gut repair, individuals frequently report feeling calmer, more emotionally stable, and less reactive to stress. It is the result of a repaired gut sending healthy chemical signals up to the brain for the first time in years. By day 21, the cardiovascular system joins the recovery. Data from the journal Hypertension shows systolic blood pressure dropped by an average of 7.2 millimeters of mercury over a single month. This reduction meaningfully lowers the risk for stroke and heart disease. Your heart rhythm also stabilizes. Regular drinking often triggers irregular heartbeats, a condition known informally as holiday heart syndrome. Without the direct toxicity of alcohol, the heart's electrical system finds its natural, steady rhythm again. By day 30, these localized recoveries lock together. Restored cellular ATP production, dramatically improved sleep architecture, and plummeting systemic inflammation combine to create a sustained rise in baseline energy levels. Based purely on the mathematical reduction of liquid calories, this 30-day stretch creates a caloric deficit that can result in a loss of 3 to 4 pounds of body fat, provided other dietary habits remain consistent. Your immune system strengthens as well. Regular alcohol consumption blunts the vigilance of natural killer cells, leaving your frontline defenses in a daze. But by day 30, these cells regain their ability to aggressively intercept and neutralize viruses and abnormal growth. In 30 days, the liver sheds fat, the cortex physically thickens, the microbiome rebalances, the heart stabilizes, and the immune system comes entirely back online. But this clean 30-day timeline has real exceptions. There are serious risks for heavy drinkers who quit abruptly, and there is a lingering scientific mystery about the deep cleaning system inside your brain that we still haven't entirely resolved. Let us talk honestly about what happens when heavy consumption stops. For someone who has been drinking heavily every day for months or years, stopping abruptly is a physical crisis rather than a test of willpower. It triggers a dangerous physiological reaction known as alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Without the substance the body has grown to expect, the central nervous system enters a state of hyperexcitation. Symptoms progress from tremors and a racing heart to hallucinations, seizures, and a condition called delirium tremens, which can be fatal without proper medical intervention. Then there is the psychological reality. Alcohol functions as a central nervous system depressant, often used to mask anxiety, trauma, or chronic stress. When that alcohol is removed, these underlying conditions temporarily intensify because the primary coping mechanism is gone. Because quitting shocks the nervous system while simultaneously exposing deep-seated stressors, medical and mental health support are biological requirements. The safest path to sobriety runs through a professional's office. Beyond the internal chemistry, there is the external environment. Alcohol is woven into the architecture of global social life, from business meetings and weddings to casual dinners and first dates. Choosing sobriety in these spaces creates immediate friction. It often leads to feelings of isolation and discomfort as you navigate a world designed for consumption. This chart shows the top 3 predictors of relapse identified in the journal Addiction Research and Theory. Notice that perceived social pressure stands out as a leading metric. Recovery is a sociological challenge as much as a biochemical one. Successful cessation requires preparing for environmental confrontation as a mandatory part of the process. To understand the physical recovery, we have to look at the brain's internal maintenance. Your brain generates metabolic debris every hour of the day, operating much like a factory that produces waste as it runs. This diagram illustrates the production of beta amyloid, a normal protein waste product. But when it accumulates too fast, these particles clump together into sticky, restrictive plaques wedged between your neurons. These plaques are a defining hallmark of Alzheimer's disease and are directly associated with the progression of age-related cognitive decline. Preventing the structural degradation of your brain depends on a constant, high-stakes biological imperative: managing this protein buildup. The brain's elegant solution is the glymphatic system. Think of it as a high-pressure washing network built into the architecture of your skull. It works by actively pumping cerebral spinal fluid through narrow channels alongside your blood vessels. This fluid flows through the tissue, capturing beta amyloid and other metabolic debris. Once captured, this waste is flushed into the bloodstream and routed to the liver for final disposal. This graph shows that the glymphatic system has a specific activation trigger. It only reaches maximum power during non-REM slow-wave sleep, the deepest stage of rest. During this phase, your brain cells shrink by 60%. This physically widens the channels between them, allowing the cerebrospinal fluid to rush through and wash the tissue clean. Deep sleep provides the structural, mechanical window required for the brain to physically wash itself. Alcohol sabotages this entire cycle. It fragments deep sleep and suppresses slow-wave activity, turning that high-pressure wash down to a trickle. Research from the University of Rochester indicates that alcohol consumption creates a 40% drop in glymphatic clearance efficiency every single night. For a regular drinker, this means years of metabolic garbage physically piling up inside the skull because the brain's cleaning crew was chemically locked out. When you stop drinking, the cycle restores itself. Deep, slow-wave sleep returns, and the glymphatic system resumes its full-power cleaning. During the first 2 weeks of sobriety, the brain flushes out months or years of accumulated beta amyloid and debris. This explains the mental fog so many experience while drinking. That fog is a physical buildup of waste, and the clarity of sobriety is the biological evacuation of that debris. This timeline maps the recovery. By the 72-hour mark, the liver begins clearing fat, the gut builds new lining, and the neurochemical storm in the brain begins to fade. At the 2-week point, your brain physically rebuilds cortical thickness and increases BDNF levels to support new neural growth. After 30 days, blood pressure stabilizes, immune function improves, and visible changes appear in skin health and body composition. This systemic repair happens automatically once the toxin is removed. It is an autonomous biological process that requires no declarations of perfection. Understanding this cellular recovery empowers you to reclaim the biology you live in every day. This is general education, not medical advice. Consult a clinician before making health changes. If this helped you, consider subscribing to BioState.